Hey there, and welcome to this week's From the Vault episode from the Magdalen House podcast. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Dallas, Texas, and known affectionately by many as Maggies. Every first and third Wednesday, we bring you a new release. In our From the Vault episodes, we share past podcast releases from our 3 different podcast series, Recover Ed, Recovered Interviews with Alcoholics, and Hope for the Family. Our podcasts aim to connect, inspire, and educate alcoholics, loved ones, and the community to the Magdalen House and the services we offer. We're so glad you're here. Thanks for listening.
Welcome, Lisa, and everyone else. I just want to first mention that everyone who is on here, we don't have anybody in our first week right now because we don't have any spaces. But so these are only required if you're in your first week. So I just want to point out that everyone who is on here because they are here on their own free will and want to be here. So I think that is super cool. But anyway, so I think most of y'all have done this before. I know Lisa has done this before, and I'm so happy to have you back. I have some questions in mind that I will want to ask, but really this whole thing is for you all. So, if you guys have questions, please speak up, ask them. But then if you don't, then that's whenever I'll step in. But so Lisa is the executive director of the Magdalen House, and I'm sure all of you know that. But she is also much more. And if you can just, Lisa, first just give us some background information and about you and what led you to Alcoholics Anonymous.
So I cry a lot. First, I want to say that, and I cuss a lot too. But I think this is being recorded, so I won't cuss anymore because it really offends some people, and I have to really watch that. I probably will cry, and it's funny because first of all, my name is Lisa, a recovered alcoholic, and I'm here today not as the executive director at all, because first and foremost in my life is I'm a recovered alcoholic. It comes before my motherhood. It comes before my work. It comes before every single thing in my life. And the reason for that is because I found my faith in recovery. And so I associate God and recovery, and to me, they are the same, because that's, for me, that is really my spirituality, is everything that is encompassed with recovery, and they don't ever really separate for me. And it's effective for me. It's effective for my life. It's effective for my family. It's effective for everything that I do. And people are like, oh, I can't put recovery in front of my family, but that's where God is. And so that in the beginning helped me a lot, because I started to see life with different glasses. I started literally to have a different lens on my life, and I cannot do that without putting my recovery first. And I tell you what, if I didn't put my recovery first, I would just go back to the selfish, butthole that I was, sitting at Houston's having a glass of wine, talking bad about you. Faith without works is dead, and my faith is firmly grounded in the recovery work that I do. And I am an undisciplined person. So without that and putting my recovery first, it made a lot more sense to me. In the beginning, it made no sense. But in the beginning, I was very desperate, and I just did whatever my sponsor told me to do. And it seemed so weird. I don't know why I'm getting up on this tangent, but after 2 or 3 weeks of sobriety, you're going to listen to this blonde chick, and you don't know her very well, but you're going to follow her directions. But it sounds so weird in the beginning, and it sounds, for me, being a very rebellious person who doesn't even follow my own directions, it sounds like I'm bowing down to someone, or I'm letting go of my personal freedoms to let someone else lead me around by a leash. That's what it felt like, and that's what it sounded like. But the big book is the meek shall inherit the earth. The one, when I lay down my sword and I've let someone literally lead my life for a bit, my life changed. And so when I saw that, it helped me to be more humble. It helped me to be more teachable. And these are principles that I take with me for the rest of my life. I have to remain open-minded. I have to remain teachable. And I learned all those principles when I was very first very, very first sober and in the beginnings of recovery. So that was a long, drawn out explanation to say that, yes, I'm the executive director. That could go away tomorrow. The board of directors could fire me tomorrow and my life would not fall apart. My life would be okay, because I've always put, since day one, recovery first. I have to. My family understands that. My husband understands that. And because of that, my family's better. Because of that, my relationship with my husband is better. Because of that, my relationship with the God of my understanding is strong. I'm not afraid of losing my job. I'm not afraid of losing my husband. Those things are material. And so if I'm going to continue to live, vertically, not horizontally, then I can live free of fear. So I don't know why I went off on that tangent. That maybe just the way that I needed to talk about today. The way I found in my life to be most helpful as an alcoholic woman in recovery is to live out loud. And you guys know how strongly I feel about that. If you've known me for 5 minutes, you know how strongly I feel about that, because we walk around so ashamed to be an alcoholic, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like, why wouldn't I talk about that out loud? But I think really some of the most effective things that I can talk about or help women with is motherhood and the shame around what we do to our children, because we do it. I'm not going to slick it up and make it pretty. It does have a purpose, but it doesn't make it any prettier or better. It still is what it is. So I think me being able to talk to you guys it helps me a lot more than it helps you. This pandemic is literally about to do me in. I swear, some days I wake up and it's all good. And some days I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, the house, Redwood Circle's falling apart, or Gaston's not going to be done in time. Or I have all these fears, like I am in charge of everything. So I'm so grateful for the principles. I'm grateful to be here to talk to you guys today. But my story starts out literally decades of drinking. In the last 10 years before I got sober, very problematically. I did not drink during my pregnancies, which I don't know why God does that to us women. Most of the women that I know, they don't drink during their pregnancies. Some do, which that's fine, but some don't. Most don't. And I think it's hormonal. I really believe it's chemical. But I didn't. And but especially right after Jake was born, my youngest, I got right back on the wagon and off the wagon, or whatever you call it. And I didn't get back on. Jake was 7 years when I got sober. So pretty much missed 7 years of his life. I did not have a aha moment that it was time for me to get sober. It was really a string of events that led up to me being in the hospital and almost dying. By the time I got to the hospital, my blood alcohol level was 0.4, because I tried to drink myself to death. And it wasn't in that moment. Don't think that that's what brought me to my knees and that was the moment. It was a sequence of events that led to that moment. If it was in that moment, then I probably wouldn't have stayed sober. I probably would have been in recovery today, because I can't just look at that moment. That moment does not make me an alcoholic just because I was in the hospital with tubes in my throat. What made me an alcoholic is the decade before that. So don't confuse like all the big consequences and she almost died or whatever, because that's not it. That's not the reason why my soul was black. My soul was black long before I was in the hospital. But all of those things kind of led to the fact that it wasn't that I was afraid of dying that I surrendered. It was because I couldn't live anymore the way that I was living. And it's a weird thing for a mom, for me at least, for a weird thing for a mother, because I didn't want to live anymore, but I couldn't hurt myself really, because I was afraid that my kids would be without a mom. So it's a horrible place to be in. Like, you really physically want to die, but you can't because your kid, it would be horrible, right? So it's this cycle that played on for about 4.5 years. From September, 4.5 years. And it was awful. You guys, I don't have to tell you how awful it was. Everybody, I can tell you how, but my awful is the same as your awful. Our awfuls are awful. And that's why we can bond so beautifully together. But the interesting thing about my story from a recovery standpoint, and I don't know, the only thing I can say is that I literally never said no. to my sponsor. I say no to shit all the time, you guys. You know, if you know me for 5 minutes, you know I'm a rebellion. My husband, I'm like, no, I'm strong. I'm not. I don't need to. Don't open my door. Do not open. I got that. You don't have to. I don't have to go ahead of you. You know, all that. I'm very independent. So for me to never say no to my sponsor and do everything that she asked me to do was a change of DNA for me. But that's what I did. I literally in the beginning just did everything that she asked me to do. So the interesting thing too, and I'll shut up and let you guys ask questions, but is I didn't relapse. This last time when I went in and I heard step 1, and I literally got it felt like bricks were hitting me in the face. It was so strong, the step 1 experience I had, not the drinking part, the knowledge and the drinking together in that moment was so strong. Like the explosion in my head that I'm not a bad person, I'm not a terrible mom, I'm just an alcoholic, was so profound that I literally got out of that place and thought I knew I was going to devote my life to it. I knew that there were women out there that needed to hear that their lives could be better because they're alcoholic, not in spite of, but because of. And I never got that message. And I got out of it, believe me. I got out of rehab pissed off, going back to my home group and telling them they're doing it wrong. They're killing mothers. They're killing people. I had to make amends. Still, I have this woman, when I go speak at this one group, my old home group, she still leaves the room. When it's me, she literally walks out. I made a lot of mistakes for sure, and that's okay. So anyway, and then here I found Maggie's 2 months into my sobriety. And I tell you what, you guys, I never left. When I was going through my divorce, I think I was at Maggie's every single day. I think it saved my kids. It saved my life. And so I literally never left. Me not being at Redwood Circle and not being physically in that building right now is the longest I've ever not been at Maggie's. And that's the only thing that I can draw a conclusion to, is that I was there every day and I never left. And I hope that you guys are all doing the same thing. And I think you're here the next step. So you get the continuity and the frequency that's so important to successful recovery, whether you want to do it or not. You know, it's not a feelings program. So that's where I am today. I started working here. They asked me to become the executive or help them find an ED. And so I had still had a couple of kids in high school. I wasn't going to work full time yet because they needed me, right? And then here what, 4 years later, I'm still here. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question?
I have some questions. So, and I'm just going to jump right in. I love what you said. I have two things. I'm just going to comment first. I love what you're saying about your kids and stuff. That's huge. It's a big piece of my life. My kids, my daughter is starting to stop having nightmares about me relapsing, because I just relapsed so many times. And so, and I see me staying in this book and working this program trickles down everywhere. You know, God just uses me when I'm willing, and I see it affecting all areas of my life, and that's cool. So I really related to the kids part, but I have questions for you about working with others.
Okay.
And I'm just going to read, this is where I'm at right now. So I'll give you a little bit of background. I've been praying, God, send me someone to help. You know, I'm living into 11 and 12. I'm willing, you know, I'm putting myself out there, and I have women calling me, but I don't feel like and this is me. They have 1,000,000,001 excuses as to why the program won't work for them, how they're different. And I keep telling them, you're no different than anybody else. You know, this program works. And then, you know, you just got to be.
So what is your program? What is your question about? I'm going to write this down.
So my question is, and I was reading this morning, it's on page 103. It says, every new alcoholic looks for the spirit among us and is immensely relieved when he finds we are not all burners. We're not all witch burners. A spirit of intolerance might repel alcoholics whose lives could have been saved, but had it not been for such stupidity. So, and they're talking about, you know, a hatred of alcohol, but
yeah, I know.
Also that witch burners part. So someone made a comment about how related that to those who go in and out of the program. You know, how do you How do you
They're
approach?
talking about the temperance movement. They're talking about the temperance and prohibition.
Okay. Now let me ask you this question,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm having a problem with being helpful and not. How do you draw that line in the sand and say, man, you're just not ready? Like, what do you say to whenever you have a sponsee that has all these excuses and, or not, just not a sponsee, but someone who comes to me and, you know, I'm like, she said, she made a comment that
Okay.
I wrote her off, you know.
Michelle.
Yeah.
You're
I
you're
know I'm
talking
rambling.
No, you're not rambling to me. You're talking too much to her.
Okay.
Why are you trying to talk her into doing the program?
Well, I wasn't really, I kind of said, hey, here's what you need to do. If you want me to sponsor you, that's fine. And I said, you know, if you want to go to treatment, here's the place that I went to. And I left it in that. And then I got a message that said I wrote her off. Why'd you write me
that's
off?
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
So did I do the right thing?
Yes. So one of the things, you guys, the most of the phone calls I get today are about sponsorship. So as Lois told Bill, who's still sober?
Me.
Michelle. Yes. 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 So our job is to try. But the one thing that you talked about is new alcoholic. So the new alcoholic is the person who's willing to do whatever it takes. They want what you have, but they're also willing to do whatever it takes. Then they're ready to take certain steps. Okay. So not every alcoholic is ready to get recovered.
Gotcha.
You can qualify 1,000 women. I can't tell you how many women I have sponsored and qualified them as alcoholic, but they're not ready to take the action yet. And so you're not gonna blow them off. Okay, so I want you to, all of you guys, where you were when you were first sober or right before you got sober. Wasn't your obsession, your mind telling you that you knew more than everybody else? Mine was telling me that it was a one-off, that no one understood me, right? That I was unique. Also, too, my mind would tell me that if this would change, I wouldn't have to drink so much. So I just need to go fix that, right? Get out of my marriage or whatever. The bottom line is, when a woman is ready, think about your own experience, Michelle. When you were ready, you put down the sword and you quit talking, or at least I don't know your experience. I don't know you, but I do know what works is that when you put down the sword and you quit talking and you listen, and there's no excuses. Everybody has an excuse why they shouldn't be in the program right now. They're too busy. Their kids are sick. There's a pandemic. Their husbands, requires all their time. They have no money. They have no car. Everyone has an excuse to not do the work. That's fine. If that's your excuse, awesome. And the other thing too, which this is, and Tina went through so hard in the beginning, you will have people that will not like you. You are not doing your job as a sponsor if everyone loves you. I am serious. My job is to disturb you about alcoholism. It's not to piss you off or be mean, but it's to disturb you. And the more that I'm disturbed about my alcoholism, the more I'm going to put down my sword and listen. But disturbed doesn't mean you're rude or mean. You're not blowing her off. You're just not doing what she wants you to do. There's a big difference. But you're going to irritate some people, and you're going to upset some people in the beginning because our egos die hard. Bill Wilson talked about the bottom is not circumstances or external. It is complete deflation of the ego. And what you're hearing is ego. And be kind. Don't judge, because we all have the ego. All of us have been there. You know what, baby? Go read 31, the allergy test. Let me know when you're done. I'll be right here. I'm not going to tell you about not drinking. I'm going to tell you what I did after I made a decision to go through the work. So I don't know if that helps or not, but you're going to have people that won't like you.
I loved it. That was dead on. That was what I needed to hear, because I was scared that I'm an infant in sobriety. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm getting knowledge and I'm growing, and I love what you said. I needed to hear that. Thank you.
Good. Yeah,
And that's
rely
all.
on your sponsor. Hopefully your sponsor will tell you that your ego's talking.
She did. She kind of said, she said the same things that you said, that, you know, when they're ready, they're going to take. I love what you said about shut up. That's what I did in the beginning. I called my sponsor for everything. I did exactly what she said. I wanted this with Desperation and Drowning Man, and that girl doesn't have it. So I love what you said.
Nope.
Thank you.
No, so go find one who does. Your job is to go find one who does. It talks about in the book, since you're quoting the book, do not spend any more time with one who doesn't want it. That's on you, not them.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I just kind of, mine is in regards to children. So my daughter is 6, and I left Maggie's at the beginning of June, excuse me. And so I've been really intentional and kind of sharing with her my journey. And so I guess I'm wondering what you would say as far as how much to include her in all of this, definitely sheltering her from the exact cause of or nature of what why mommy was sick, but definitely including her in that. She was very aware and present for all of that. But I find her being very interested in my Zoom meetings, and kind of when I have my headphones in, she wants to see the ladies and things like that. And so with your kids, did you, as the older they got, did you let them become more aware of what happened? Or is that something like just as she's curious, the older she gets, kind of, this is what happened, that kind of thing?
Okay, so my oldest was 13 when I got sober, and my youngest was 7. So my oldest knew everything. I mean, he had a drunk mom for his whole middle school years. But my youngest, now boys are different than girls. Boys are real different than girls. My boys, they would play video games. They'd give a crap if I was on, and we didn't have Zoom and all this stuff. They didn't. But Jake went with me to a lot of meetings. He sat in the little foundation room off to the side many, many nights with his little Game Boy thing back then. And so they were very curious as to what mommy was doing. I told them all about the disease of alcoholism. I said the words alcoholism a lot. Your mommy's an alcoholic. I wanted them to tell their friends. I wanted them to share that information so that there was not a stigma around it. Because we talk about my mommy has cancer. My mommy has diabetes. My mommy has a heart problem. But we don't want to say my mommy's an alcoholic. So that's the language I started using with my kids very early on, so they weren't afraid of the word. And my youngest, who now is a year recovery, he's a drug addict, and so he just celebrated a year in May. He doesn't look at it as such a shameful thing. He's like, I have a disease like my mom. And it's crazy. But I would include the kids as much. Now, I wouldn't talk about the consequences. I didn't go tell them how many DWIs I had or what jail was like. I mean, I talked about it from a factual disease model standpoint. And it was easier for them to grasp. It wasn't scary. My behavior was scary. And as they got older, they started to see how my behavior was the most helpful thing that I had for other people, for other women. It wasn't my knowledge of the big book. So they started seeing women come over to our house. They started literally to see, and they would hear me talk about what I did with the kids. And that really made a lot of sense to them. But I would say to every woman on here, don't be afraid of the alcoholic word. You're perpetuating the stigma of alcoholism. Why wouldn't we talk about it like we do with cancer? And let her be a part of it.
That's one thing that I'm struggling with, is I find myself kind of muting the phone when and I was on a call the other day, and I kept saying, that thing, because she was right next to me. So I've definitely been struggling with saying that, I'm not afraid to say it, but I've definitely found myself kind of, I don't want to just come out and say it. So maybe I am afraid to say it. Yeah.
Don't be ashamed. Right now you're shaming yourself, and quit it. This second, you're shaming yourself. This is a learning opportunity. That's the mind shaming. Like the other day I had a woman said, oh my God, I wanted to drink. I go, okay. The problem is that you not wanting to drink. It was just a thought because you called me. And if you're an obsession, you're not going to call your sponsor if you're an obsession. The thought is not what the problem is. It's why the hell are you shaming yourself around a thought? The shame is what we don't see.
Yeah.
So right this second, you're shaming yourself and you're not allowing yourself to be open-minded to see that that's just a learning opportunity for you. Like, you're expected to know that after you've been taught by society that alcoholism is a horrible thing. So it's okay. It's okay. And this is how we're going to make it into cancer is not a horrible thing, but the more that we talk about it, the more that we're going to come up with a solution and a cure. We've got to talk about alcoholism in the same way that we talk about any kind of disease. So I would do that with the kids. But
Okay.
Lindsay, quit shaming yourself. It's okay.
No, I like that. I've had the question about my daughter, but on the Maggie's meeting yesterday, I think you addressed like when you're talking to other women. And I really struggled with that with my mom going to one of her best friends and telling her my situation. And I have to see this lady tomorrow. And I was like, I'm so embarrassed. And then you touched on that yesterday and said, you should be living out loud and proud that you're out there helping women. And so it made me change my whole thought process in that regards. And so I need to take that into the situation with my daughter. So thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So alcoholism, the stigma of alcoholism is not perpetuated by my husband or normal drinkers. The stigma of alcoholism is perpetuated by us. No, us, yeah. All of us, not just you. You're not unique. We all have it. We all get into a place of shame that we don't want to talk about it. And that's why it's perpetuated. If all of us recovered alcoholics were out there talking about all the shit that we've done in the world that's good, that we're helping all these women, we're being vessels and principles and spirit, do you think the stigma would still be alive? No.
Yeah.
So we all do it. It's not you. It's all of us. We all have to support each other and encourage each other and say, it's okay to talk about it. Not talking about it is what perpetuates the stigma. They don't see the beautiful side of recovery. All they see is the shit because that's what's entertaining. If I hear one more story of a woman getting up there and talking for 45 minutes about her drunkalogue because people are laughing, alcoholism is not entertaining. It's not meant to be entertainment.
Yeah.
We've got to get out there and talk about the beautiful parts of it. The way that it changes lives. It's not about alcohol. That's why I mean, Michelle was talking about the temperance movement earlier, but it's not about alcohol. It's about looking at life through a completely different perspective, living a life of purpose. I don't know. I could go on and on about that.
I love it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think that maybe the stigma surrounding alcoholism is maybe perpetuated a little bit stronger in those who are coming into recovery in this pandemic and aren't, afforded the opportunity of being able to go to in-person meetings and connect person to person with other alcoholics?
Yeah, I think we're all living. It's not just people, because Alec, remember that I'm just like you are. I'm not any different than you are. We're all living on a two-legged stool. None of us have. I need community just as much as you do. I'm not any different than you are. There's not a newcomer that's any different. I still have to wake up every single morning, and today is day one. I wish I could cuss, but day one. So I think we're all living in a place where we're missing, because it's three-sided triangle, right? Recovery, unity, and service. We got the recovery part. We can all do the steps with our sponsor, 10, 11, and 12. We've got the service part because we can serve women through the computer as best we can. But what we're missing is the unity part, the being able to touch each other, the fellowship. And it's just as important. All three are equally important. So I don't know if it's worse because you're not being able to touch each other. We are not being able to touch each other. I don't know if the stigma is worse about but I do know that it's harder. I would think it would be harder to start your recovery program or start the recovery program in a pandemic. We're afforded the touching and the hugging and the sitting and holding hands. And I think that would cause a lot of resentment for me if I were newly sober. I don't think that the stigma, if you've had a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps and you're out there helping other women on week 2, the joy in your heart should be so full that you want to tell every single person about it. The change should be so dramatic it's like living, oh, I don't want to say that because I'm being recorded. It's indescribable. And if you don't have that, then you might want to take a look at 10, 11, and 12 and what you're doing in those 3 steps if you've already been through the steps. Because there should be no shame around it. The stigma is perpetuated because of the shame. And so there shouldn't be shame. And if you are, you need to take a look at that, but recognize it. Like Lindsay, I don't want to pick on you, but like Lindsay, when she was talking about that with her daughter, she was feeling the shame. We could all see that she was shaming herself. She doesn't see it. So we've got to see when we're doing that and then rise up, lift our head up and say, no, that's obsession. That's my mind. That's the mental illness talking. And if that's the case, there should be no stigma at all. I don't care if you're a newcomer or if you've got 35 years. Every day is day one for me.
Thanks. I like that. I heard in the very beginning that if like you go through the steps and you're not on fire with wanting to help people, that you probably missed something.
Yeah.
And that was my experience too. I was like,
yeah, I'm on day 13 and every day I wake up and go, who the hell? Oh yeah, every day. It's the weirdest. It's a phenomenon. It's yeah. I don't know.
Does anybody else have a question?
Alec, did that help?
Yeah, no, I was asking for a little bit of clarification. I definitely have like little to no shame regarding it. I like tell the vast majority of the people that I meet that I'm an addict alcoholic. So
yeah, I love that about you. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
No. Anybody else? Okay. So I had a couple things that I wanted to hit on, but I'm not really sure what I want to ask. Okay. You mentioned earlier your divorce, which was actually something that I wanted to talk to you about if we had the time. So I know that we're going to have trials in low spots, right, in our sobriety.
Yes.
Life happens. And I can imagine that going through a divorce, newly sober, well, I think you were newly sober.
That's 2 years.
Yeah, was painful. So I would ask you, if you don't mind, sharing your experience and that painful time of your sobriety and what you did, if that makes sense.
It does. I think I want to touch on one of the biggest lessons I learned, and it had to do around step 10. It had to do with like the parallel is in Bill's story when he talks about that the God consciousness from within and that common sense thus becomes uncommon sense and bearing witness. So in 2009, we got divorced at the end of 2009. In 2008, I would say, we separated for the first time. We were having major problems before I got sober. And he's literally in the other room. I can tell you that minute. Major problems. And I literally thought that if he would be out of my life, that I could get sober. Well, we separated. And then we got back together, and then I got sober, and then we separated again. We actually had an apartment down in Uptown, anyway, whatever. And we would switch out. We'd spend 1 week with the kids and 1 week out. It was like this thing that we did. And I was so angry, you guys. I mean, literally, I was so angry. I hated him. I hated the fact that I'd gotten sober, and I had this big spiritual epiphany, and now my kids were going to suffer because of our divorce, and he wanted the divorce. And so I was freaking angry. Like literally we're starting to get into a rhythm. Mama's getting sober. Mama's getting in recovery. And now you're leaving our family. And you can imagine how pissed off I was. Right. And so because my kids had already been through hell, now they have to go through hell again. And so I was really, really angry. We went through divorce attorneys, and it was my sponsor. It was awful. So something happened in 2009. We got back together for a brief period of time. We thought we would work it out after that separation. And then he came to me one day, sitting, I'll never forget it. I was sitting at the end of the master bed, and he looked at me, he said, "I'm done. I want out." It was really hard because I knew that the right thing to do was to have joint custody, right? And it's unnatural for a mother to be without their kids for a week. It was hard. But I had a different experience the second time around. My sponsor worked. I did everything that she asked me to do. I paused, I prayed. I would walk out of those attorney sessions and just get on my knees in the car and try to be as kind as I possibly could. Like she said, don't you say one negative word. You do everything that I ask you to do. You owe it to your children to be kind, no matter what you feel. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And at one point, this one attorney looked at Dave and said, you guys get along better than most married people I know. Why are you guys getting a divorce? I literally put down my sword and I quit fighting because I had to do it for my children. And I still didn't like him very much, but I tensed up a shit ton over that period of time. And I really believe that God changed my heart, that common sense thus become uncommon sense. It didn't make any sense to me why I had this change. Like, I'm going to do this for my kids. I'm going to be kind to him no matter what he says to me. At one point in the whole thing, he called me a bitch. I mean, it was, and I just got up and walked out and paused and prayed and came back in and I just took it. I just quit fighting. And I tell you what, and the reason why it was so beautiful, my sponsor pointed this out. She said, which one of those women do you want to sponsor you? Do you want the fighter? I'm going to get at him. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him and the kids. Or do you want the woman who's spiritually centered, who's at peace, who's not fighting, that no one's doing it to her? And I said, you know what? The second woman. And when she said that to me, it changed my life. I quit being a fighter. And in that quit being a fighter, I won the long game. My husband, we divorced, and literally the way that peaceful heart that I had in that process, he literally wanted what I had. And 2 years later, he came back and said, I'm miserable. I screwed up. And I said, I'm sorry, but I'm over you. And it took me about two or 2.5 years to even go on a date with him. But I finally did. And he waited patiently while I blew him off. And then we got remarried in 2017. But I tell you what, you guys, that divorce, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me because it just took my fight out. And I quit making it about me. I made it about my children. I made it about the women I sponsor. I made it about everything else than me. And I am the one who benefited in the end. Just like alcoholism. When I quit making it about alcohol, when I start making it about others, I'm the one who benefits in the end. I quit doing it for me, but I'm the one who got the biggest reward. And that wasn't my motivation. I tell you what, I would not have had that perspective if I hadn't got divorced and I hadn't had a really cool sponsor that literally took the wind out of my sails and showed me that I was being selfish. And I listened to her and I didn't want to. It's not in my nature to not fight. I am not a runner. I'm a fighter. And it changed my life.
That was so good.
Let me get this straight. So your husband,
Yeah.
father of your children,
Yeah.
y'all divorced,
We did.
and now you're remarried to him.
He had a spiritual awakening. I was trying to get him.
How did I miss that?
I don't know. But I literally, it was almost like I was beating him over the head with spirituality. Like I was beating those people over the head in that AA meeting, right? You need this. I am textbook. Like I literally am textbook. It says, you remember in the book, it says beat the person with spirituality, and that you need to, it's about what you do, not what you say. Well, when I got out of the picture, guess what happened to him? He had his own spiritual awakening without me. He came to me and sat across me at the kitchen table, and I still have it, and read me this letter of a man. He told me that AA was a cult, that I had found another obsession, that AA had become my new obsession and just replaced alcohol. He hated AA. So for the first 18 months of our second marriage, he was at PPG with me every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. He learned the book. He read the book. He literally wanted to learn everything about it. It's crazy. God did that. I didn't. I wasn't even in the picture. You
And
guys, this thing is real. It's real.
Lisa, didn't he do the steps as well?
He did. So he read me that amends. That was his amends. Isn't that crazy, you guys? I think that's so crazy.
So cool though.
Yeah.
Does
I'm
anybody?
sorry I'm crying so much.
No, I love it. I'm really happy that we have that on record too, so other people can hear it. Does anybody else have a question? Okay. Well, we're getting to the top of the hour, but there's still something else I wanted to ask. So if y'all need to get off a little early, that's fine, because we might run over a few minutes. I wanted to talk to you about like repairing relationships. I remember last time, in which I know like we all come in here, right? And like we're a tornado roaring through the lives of others. And you know that there's a long road of reconstruction ahead. But I remember last time you were on and we talked about amends, and you said that some of them didn't go well.
Yeah.
It was because it's not about, it made you realize it's not about what you say, but it's about what you do.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask you if you could touch on relationships that were repaired. I really want to hear about repairing the relationships with your children, but if you have any other relationships that were repaired, if you mind sharing your experience with that.
So one of the biggest things I had, or expectations I had, was, and this is a textbook too, wrong. One of the expectations I had after amends is that these relationships would be repaired, right? And that's not what the amends process is about. The amends process is about the past, right? So it's a sincere desire to set right the wrong. So I literally went into some of these amends with the expectation that relationships would be repaired, and that did not happen. In most of the amends that I made, maybe one or two, I'm trying to think of my sister, but and she was fine. My sister was like, you know what, just keep doing what you're doing. I love you, and blah, blah, blah. Easy, easy, easy. But it's really actually not easy, because what she's saying is a big, tall order, because that means, you know, practicing the principles in all your affairs. But most of the amends that I made were not, they weren't immediate reparation, which is fine, because that's not the purpose of the amends. The amends is about the past. It has nothing to do with the current relationship or the future. So living through that amends process and just taking the action, it took a long time for those relationships to be repaired. Like I said, my sister and Dave, it took years, obviously, because for us to trust each other again. I just want you guys to know that God will repair, and I have this experience. Your higher power, whatever that looks like, will repair those relationships as you walk the walk. This is not about an immediate reparation. It's not as strong or as authentic if it's immediate reparation. My sister, it took her a while to get really honest with me about some of the things that I had done to her. And so it takes a while. It takes a long time. Some of the relationships I have will never be repaired. The relationship with my mom, I don't think it will. I think she's so stubborn that she's gonna not speak to me until the day she dies. Other relationships are stronger. Every one of my relationships with my children is stronger every day. 13 years into it, it was not like that at the amends. So if your expectations are that relationships will change when you make your amends, you might want to look at your motives for making the amends, because the amends process has nothing to do with reparation to relationships. It has to do with your willingness to do whatever it takes to repair the damage of the past. It's not about the current or the future. So whenever someone will call me and say, "Hey, she was so mean to me," I'm like, "So you were mean to her? I mean, what were your expectations of that amends?" So the amends process is just a step. I mean, it's just a step that you do, and it's important, and it was life-changing for me, for sure. It wasn't life-changing to the people that I made amends to. The people that I made amends to, they wanted to see action. They wanted to see longevity. They wanted to see frequency and continuity before they would ever trust me again. So I have to constantly remember that the amends process is one part of a lifetime, right? And by practicing these principles in all of my affairs, that's what's going to repair the relationships. And God, I know that because that's what's happened to me. It takes time. And that's not Americans. And in general, we want immediate gratification. I'm the biggest connoisseur of Amazon you've ever seen in your life. I like the 2-day prime. I will only buy the 2-day prime. I like immediate gratification. I want you to like me because I got sober and I told you that I'm not going to do that anymore. I mean, really? So it takes a long time, which is really good, you guys, because that's a part of building the foundation. For me, that was a part of building a very strong foundation, was constantly making sure that I was practicing the principles in all my affairs. And even my kids wanted what I had after a while, but not in the beginning. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it's a process.
Yes. Thank you. All right. I'm going to ask our wrap-up question unless somebody has something that they want to ask. Okay. I just want to thank you very much for being on here with us. And to wrap things up, I just always like to ask if there is like one takeaway that you'd want us to have, one thing that you want us to leave us on, like the one thing that you'd want us to know, or the women who are going, or whoever's going to listen to know, what would that one thing be? What would that one takeaway be?
I think the one takeaway would be that recovery is very different than sobriety. And I say this a lot right now in this pandemic, because if I'm in fear of drinking again, if I'm in fear, that means I'm really just trying to stay sober. I'm focusing on the alcohol, and fear-based living sucks. If I'm focusing on recovery and sustaining long-term recovery, I'm supposed to make mistakes. I'm not inspired by women who do it perfectly. I'm inspired by women who mess up a lot, and it's in the reparation. That's what I'm inspired by. I want to be like that one. I want to be, like Mae West said it best, I want to sit with the sinners. I don't want to sit with the do-gooders. I want to be with the women who are not afraid to make mistakes and who are authentic about it. That's what recovery looks like to me. So fear and all this pandemic about drinking or not drinking, that would be a suck way to live. And that's still the obsession living, big and bright. But recovery is different, and it's cool because I get to make a lot of mistakes, and I get to be who I am and authentic. And I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not just so I can do this thing perfectly or stay sober. So just always remember that sobriety is really different than recovery, and they mean two very different things, and it will lead you to two very different results. That's all I have. How about that?
So much. That was so good. And we ended just in time. Look at that. So, all right, y'all. I will see you guys later. Lisa, I'll see you later this afternoon. I love y'all so much. Bye.
I love you guys. Thank you guys for having me.
Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this From the Vault re-release of the Magdalen House podcast. Tune in every first and third Wednesday for a new release from one of our 3 podcast series. To learn more about the Magdalen House and the services we offer, visit magdalenhouse.org or follow us on your favorite social media channels by searching for the Magdalen House.